Boxing King Media in association with Boxro. Delighted to spend a bit of time with you today, Peter Fury. Thank you for welcoming me to your home. How are you?
I'm not bad. It's good to see you again.
I'm hoping people are going to be watching this over the Christmas period, so I want to just get you to start off with like a festive message for people that are watching this now that may need a bit of inspiration or a bit of a kick up for looking into the next year, because this year's been hard for everyone.
Well, what can I say? Live life every day. Tomorrow's not promised, so we have to try and live in the moment and let tomorrow worry about itself. Same as the past. Forget the past. Can't do anything about it. So that's the only thing you can do, isn't it?
It definitely is. That's a lovely message to start off with. I want to initially talk to you about Savannah Marshall. It's been, a good few weeks now since the fight's been done, dusted. One of the key things that I personally thought looking at it was possibly the tactics. Were you happy with the tactics that Savannah employed in that fight by taking the fight to Clarissa?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, look, you can look back at anything in hindsight. But Clarissa stepped up to the plate. She took what Savannah had in the pressure. She responded, and she come out on top. So that's it. I'm a ultimate sportsman, and I don't begrudge anybody to win. Clarissa's trained just as hard as Savannah. They both train very, very hard, and and the best person should win. So I'm not going to sit here and say she's done this wrong, that wrong. She lost the decision. And, full congratulations to Clarissa Shields. And don't begrudge anybody success. So Savannah will do better next time. And hopefully we can get the rematch. And there's a lot more to come from Savannah.
Some of the people that were obviously commenting on the fight felt that if she kept it long, obviously it's hindsight talking here, do you feel that keeping it long would have potentially given her the chance to maybe nick some more rounds rather than allowing Clarissa, because when they were fighting in close, it allowed Clarissa to obviously land shots?
Well, talk is cheap. Maybe if Savannah would have stood off, then Savannah would have got whitewashed. We just don't know the answer to that, do we? So, look, it's boxing's a funny thing. But Savannah was fairly comfortable. So it is what it is. Yeah, she'll do better next time. But getting back to it, we are where we are. Everybody's got an opinion, and I respect proper boxing people's opinions. But a lot of people in boxing, I don't respect. So anybody that's got anything to say about in boxing communities, I'm not interested in. I listen to genuine fans all day long, because that's the only reason why I'm in boxing. But, boxing today is majority is like prostitutes. So I'm not really interested in what they've got to say. As a matter of fact, I've seen stuff on the social media. There was all wishing Clarissa the very best. A lot of people from the boxing industry over here. So much for supporting your home country, isn't it? So a lot of it in boxing. There's a lot of jealousy, a lot of snidiness going on. So I'm not really interested what inputs they've got to say. But look, was the tactics wrong? Maybe. If she'd have stood off, would it have been a better fight? Maybe. Maybe not. So that's it. We know what we got to do. We know what we got to do next time. And I'm happy. And I do believe this, if Savannah hadn't have pushed the fight the way it was, it probably wouldn't have been the fight it was. So it's took off for women's boxing for one. So yeah, I'm happy with it. Obviously, we don't train to come second best, we train to win. But, she goes again.
You said there were people that obviously were praising Clarissa. Is there anyone in particular one particular person, or was it just generally just boxing people from the UK?
Well, generally, yeah, and listen, I don't mind, it's them. But, we're not going to sit here and say, it can be this, it can be that. I'm not interested. But I'm not really interested. That's why I don't socialise much with the boxing fraternity, because it's a strange game. And I'm a lone ranger anyway. I don't want to be part of giving somebody a blowjob because they're at the top of the tree or for a pound note like everybody else seems to be doing. I'm not interested.
That's quite a vivid analogy, that one, Peter. And just the next move for Savannah.
They are blowjobs, aren't they, though? That's what I see. I'll call it as it is.
And the next move for Savannah, obviously the middleweight division in women's boxing is not littered with loads of fighters, and there's probably a big gulf between Savannah and Clarissa and the rest of them. Like we said in the build-up, could you potentially go further down in weights, or what are you thinking next? The next move for Savannah?
Ultimately, I'd like Savannah to have the rematch. Hopefully, that can happen next year. Now, she can't go down any further, and she'll probably go up. Well, she will go up in weight.
And to speak about your son Hughie, I know he's still recovering from long COVID. Is there any progress in that, and can we expect a potential return date for Hughie Fury?
Yeah, he's recovered from the COVID. He's had all the injections and stuff, so he feels a lot better, and he's just relaxing, having Christmas off, and away we go next year.
A potential opponent, we was discussing it earlier, potentially Daniel Dubois. Does that fight interest you? They're both probably in the similar sort of stages of the careers.
Do you know what? I don't talk about any fighter. The main thing is get in another fight, and he'll fight whoever's put in front of him. I've not discussed it. He's been ill, hasn't he? So we'll have a look at where he's at next year.
We're going to rewind way back now, Peter, because one of the things that I wanted to speak to you about is you're a man of a lot of life experience. You've been through a lot, in boxing, out of boxing. So I want to speak to you about, your life in general. So the first thing I want to ask you is a bit of a random one, but I know you've spoken about your father before, but how far can you remember the Fury ancestry? So do you remember grandfathers?
Yeah, I remember my granny and granddad, yeah, of course, and on both sides. I was only a young kid when he passed away. Yeah, I do remember him. All good things to say about him. They're my family, aren't they? So, all good memories. And what my father used to tell us.
Anything that sticks out to you that you can share with us?
Yeah, going back for the generations, there was good fighters. There was boxing people back then in the early days as well. 1800s, 10 of the 1900s and stuff like that. I've got pictures here somewhere of them. Where they got the white trousers on with the ribbon down the side. And they got their hands like that. So we've got all the pictures.
And obviously, looking at the Fury family, you guys are all 6 foot plus with the big men.
Yeah, well, we're not big anymore. My own sons, they tower over me. I'm 6'1", which is relatively small, and all my lot 6'5", 6'6". The big men. The 20 stone pluses, aren't they?
They definitely are. And then one of the other things I want to speak to you about is your early childhood. I know you kind of lived everywhere. Have you lived in Doncaster as well, am I right in saying?
Yeah.
What's your memories of living in Doncaster? I know you lived on some sites there.
Listen, there was happiest times in my life. When I was a little kid. All of my family was intact. All my brothers was intact, and my mother and father was healthy. I had a very good bringing up. We never had a lot of money. We was brought up properly. With respect and stuff. I was very lucky. I had the best parents in the world.
What was discipline like for you, from a travelling family? Like people talk about it back in the day. People are scared to talk about it now, but, did you get caned? Did your dad have to get the belt out when you was out of line?
100%, we was put in schools, and, the headmasters, I've had plenty of the slippers, plenty of the canes over the years and being in school, and I didn't go to school for that long, from about 5 to about 8 or 9. But in them years, got into trouble and done things wrong, and that's the way it was back then. You had the cane and the slippers and the rulers on the back of the hands.
Any particular beating you can remember? Because I can remember the ones that I've had back in the 90s. Do you remember any?
Not really. Just chastised what young boys should be chastised, and I'm very grateful for it. Look, my day when you was growing up, if you give cheek, they think nothing of taking the back of the hand and slapping your across the lips with it. And that'd be it. And you'd soon shut up then. You'd cry some tears, and that'd be the end of it. So, a lot of kids are short of that these days. So look, we had the best of bringing up. Step to the line, you get dealt with.
And faith. I know faith is a massive part of the traveller culture. It's kind of instilled in you from a young age, and most people, even now in the older generation, still practice faith. What is your earliest memories of having faith drilled into you?
Only as much as drilled into me. It was from my mother and father. They believed in the blessed Lord, and my father had referenced Jesus Christ on a regular basis and the blessed Lord and all of this. So, we grew up with that. We're believing in that, and it's carried on ever since.
And just forwarding to current society, obviously you see, mainly non-traveller people, faith isn't really a big part of people's livelihoods nowadays.
Listen, People will get the Quran, people will get the Holy Bible, go and sniff some cocaine around the corner and think they're religious and think they're God-fearing people. Yeah. Today, what I say, I think we're losing the population to a drug race. And you know what drugs does? It makes you lose your moral fibre, you lose your values, and you become selfish with drugs. That's why the Class A drugs, that's why they're illegal, because it wrecks people's minds. So you see this, and and looking back on my past and being involved with drugs, I should know very well. And that's one of the things in my life I've got regrets with, because it's the dredges of society and what it does to people. So being an older man now and realising, that's it. The only thing I was having a conversation with somebody the other day about this. The only thing I'm happy with is that I was punished for it. I've done heavy jail, yeah, and I've paid heavy money as well. So I never got away with what I did. I paid for it. And I've paid for it incarcerated, I've paid for it in money, and I've paid for it morally as well. Because for me, it's a stain and I regret it,
I'm going to definitely come on to that. And just with the timeline that we were talking about, so now you're at a young age, I'm guessing you're like 10, 11 years old, you're living in Doncaster, Yorkshire. Am I right in saying there were the early days when you first started getting into boxing and you went down to the Ingle gym back in them days?
I think we were staying in a place called Staveley in Chesterfield. It was all in, people say gypsy caravans, travellers' trailers. So we lived there on a site, and there was good memories. We know a lot of local people there. We used to go to the gym, and we used to drive from Staveley through Eckington into Sheffield, and go to Brendan Ingle's gym. When we was younger, all of us brothers, and that's where I first met Brendan. And through the years growing up, always used to end up back there, and every time we used to call in, used to go and see the old man. So I got the height of respect for Brendan Ingle, and Brendan Ingle was a proper man. He had time for everybody. He didn't need to be somebody in boxing. He didn't need to be anybody. He gave value to everybody. He really did. I've had personal experience with that man. I got a height of respect for him. He wasn't a man to be swayed with money. He loved boxing, the community, helping the young kids. He'd done everything he could, so I got a height of respect for him, and I can't hold him in high enough regard because I seen how he was as a man. I knew him.
Do you think it's what you're saying about him there? Do you reckon it's linked to the fact that he was a big religious man as well?
Definitely, because proper people who believe in the blessed Lord do right things. And he give back. He give back to society in the right ways. That's what he did. So he was a proper man in every regard. He needs holding in the highest esteem, does old Brendan.
What's your, have you got any particular memories from, because I know you spent a lot of time, and Dominic told me he remembers yourself and John walking into the gym back in them days. Any particular quotes or things you can remember him saying to you?
He was just a very good character, He'd have young lads singing in the ring, and he'd have them doing all these type of things to build them confidence. He just made people with, I wouldn't say no ambition, but people off the street with nothing, that couldn't get respect, had nowhere to go or anything. He'd give you his time. Everybody felt comfortable around him because he was a very nice man, So he had that way with him, where people wanted to be around him because they knew they could trust him.
Very true. And then moving on, we're going to skip a few years forward. You become a car salesman on a big scale. You were selling cars. So I've got to ask you, what's the biggest lick you made on a car? Because everyone remembers that.
I think one of the best weeks I had in the 80s, I think 88, 89, I made about 30 grand in a week.
Wow.
Buying and selling these motors. So yeah, which was quite a lot back then. But there was a lot of expense back then. Even advertising was 1,200, 1,500 quid a week. But it's not like the fees of today. I'd have probably 15, 20 grand a week, and 30 grand would be probably 300 grand now. It was them kind of things. So yeah, listen, I'm only on about 1 week, by the way, not every week. If you're asking me what the best is, I can just remember that as a week, not as one deal.
And as a man, obviously, if you sell cars, it normally means you've got interesting cars. Any particular car that you've owned in your lifetime that's really precious to you?
Yeah, look, you know, as a young man, I had money, so I, you know, Ferraris, Rolls Royces, Porsches, whatever. You know, I had all these type of cars. But you know, look, I have when I had these cars, I don't know, but I'd have them, but didn't mean anything. I'd just be as happy as driving a transit van. You know, so I used to give the people who worked for me these cars to run around in because it was a lifetime dream for them. You know, but I'd go home in an escort van. I didn't really value it because ultimately, it's a piece of tin. Nice, it was nice for 2 days, and then after 2 days, I'd look at it and think, you know, I don't see the money in it. You know, so other people would run around it. I'd be more happy in a small van. And they're probably one of the reasons when I think back in my mind looking at that, I think to myself, you know, this car, you know, you're getting above yourself. Get back to where you started. You know, and I was more comfortable driving just cheap things like everybody else.
And then obviously just moving on, I'm not going to go too deep into it, but obviously you've spoke about it before in previous interviews. So how does a guy like yourself, a successful businessman with, you know, we talked about faith, etc., like what kind of made you go towards crime? Was it mixing with the wrong crowd, or was it the lure of like money? Like what was it, anything specific that made you like go from that to that?
Well, I'd say money, greed, wanting millions of pounds like in a week. Why wait a year or two if I can have millions of pounds now? You know, part of that. But a lot of things really. Maybe bored with life because I had everything. And when I looked at it, I didn't really value it. But let me tell you, when the shit hit the fan and it went wrong for me, then I valued everything. But I didn't value the lifestyle. When I was put in solitary confinement, yeah, from having everything, that wasn't my problem. My problem was my wife and my children. That's what I missed. And that's what I seen straight away when I was in there. I'm worrying about them on the outside as if they're going to be all right when I'm in there. So the material stuff just didn't matter. Didn't miss anything. I was on £6 a week from being on thousands of pounds a week, having millions of pounds to £6 a week. Yeah. But I wasn't interested in that. I was interested in losing the family. So then I did realise. So probably spiraling into all this trouble and doing all this thing was maybe some excitement in my life because I didn't value anything. Like I said, I was very successful in everything. I had money, houses, lovely family, but didn't appreciate it. So I went down that route. So, but believe me, when it did go wrong for me, it's a true saying. And the true saying is, and I've lived these, I've been there and lived all this, yeah? Right? It's hard on the way up, but it's even a lot harder on the way down when it goes wrong.
And it 100% was for you. I want to take you back to that moment where you stood in court. What was that first sentence you got for?
I got 10 years.
So you're stood in court, the judge's like guilty, the jury's guilty, and it's bangs 10 years to you. Just tell me what went through your mind when they said, Peter, for you, 10 years.
Well, not a lot.
Do you remember that moment? Did you cry? Did you get emotional?
Listen, I remember everything very, very well, you know. But look, I'm always one of these. When the shit hits the fan, I don't know, I can deal with it. When a problem hits, I can deal with it. And I have dealt with a lot of things in the past. So I can deal with things. When I got to jail, I dealt with my prison. You know, thousands of people met me in the prison. They all know people who be watching this and met and used to see me in the prison. They know what I was like in the prison. Yeah, so I can deal with it. But do I want to deal with it? No. Would I rather been outside? Of course I would. So, like I said, it affected me with my family on the outside. And what it done as well, you know, a friend of mine said, when you're out on the street, a lot of people can pretend. They can have a nice watch, nice clothes. They can talk the talk, walking it doesn't matter. When you get in that system, you see the real person. There's no hairs and graces there. You see who's imposters, who's snide. It all comes flying out what people are. So you see the real people in there. So jail is an educational thing as well. Because you see, nothing surprises me. Nothing surprises me with people. I've seen it all. I've seen it all with people. Nobody can surprise me.
obviously getting that sentence, your first few nights in the cell, and I've heard stories in the past where prison can break the hardest men. Did you ever cry?
100%. I cried like a child for my wife and my children, but when the doors opened, they'd never see it.
What was that like for you as being a man who's obviously quite proud of how you are? I don't want to use the word stone-hearted, but most men who can deal with anything are quite stone-hearted, so it must have been quite a deep moment for you to kind of break down.
Any man that loses his family and looking, solitary confinement is hard. Forget the macho-ness. Yeah, sure, I do the training in the cell, I do the press-ups, the circuit, and I never used to ask for anything, I just get on and do it. Wasn't somebody ringing the bell. You're not dealing with somebody, I'm not a junkie who required anything. That's it. You look, you've lost your freedom. Yeah, you're looking at a long time in prison. And my jail wasn't like anybody else's because I was looked upon as a terrorist. It was heavy duty when I was in prison. I wasn't just a normal inmate. So I wasn't somebody who's going to kiss somebody's ass and start going through the system. Because if I'd wanted to kiss her ass, it wouldn't have made any difference. Because I was dealt with by the Home Office. I was category A. So I got released with an Alsatian dog up my ass and an escort coming out the gate when I'd done all my jail. Because I said, what's the need for all this? They said, you'll be a cat A, Peter, when you're on the street. Because it's who you are. You're not a normal prisoner. You're not a normal person. So you're dangerous to the state, the public, and whatever. So that was my prison.
Crazy. And talking about, I know we touched on it in an interview we did months ago, your time in prison, you shared a cell with a Palestinian chap, I think your name was Razmi Awad.
Yeah.
You told me a little story back then, but just tell me what it was like meeting, obviously you're a religious Christian, I believe he was a Muslim, so what was it like, the two religions kind of, I'm guessing you had loads of deep conversations about talking about each other's faiths and...
Well, I was telling him about Jesus Christ and he was telling me about Muhammad and, and he had a picture in his cell, I won't say a painting, it was like an illustration, like a photograph. And he was saying to me, right, that gold dome there, and he was telling me about the
Gold Dome Mosque in Palestine.
And there's the stones underneath, which you wouldn't even notice on the photograph, the foundations of it all, where it all started, where the Hebrews come into Israel. He was taking me back to all of that, So very, very interesting. Going over the history, telling me about the Quran. I was telling him things about the Bible, because obviously I've read a lot of the Bible when I was in there. And that's it. And we both had our own faiths.
Did you know prior to that how similar the both faiths are? The fact that they obviously, the origins are Adam and Eve, and the beliefs are pretty much the same. And
they're pretty much the same, yeah. Genesis and all that is, a lot of the Quran is the Old Testament. It's very, very similar. So it's very similar. And it's, listen, I believe in one God, not two or three. And the thing is, we're all the same. So I don't differentiate with anybody.
So I think you told me you guys used to cook food together. What was that like? Just talk to me about a little bit.
Listen, he was my friend and I valued him. He was a good person. He was a good man. He had a good heart as well. And we spent a lot of time together. And he used to cook food, and we'd sit there, and eat it, because let's face it, when you're there and you got your own company, and there's only the two of you there, and you're in very similar circumstances, and you sit down, you appreciate everything, like a nice cooked meal and stuff. It was nice, and you're dealing with people where you can have conversations where it's genuine. It's 100% genuine. And when you look, the most people that's closest to the blessed Lord are the people that's in despair. Yeah, because when everything's going right in your life, yeah, whether they think so or not, yeah, the blessed Lord goes on the back burner. They'll pay lip service, but a lot of them, that's the way it is. So when you're in despair and you lose your freedom, yeah, and you're talking about all these type of things, you're talking from the heart, aren't you? And that's how it was with me and him. So I had a very, again, I had the height of respect for the fella, and likewise, and we got on very well.
Long time in prison. Was there ever a time where, and a lot of people do go through these thoughts of like ending it all? Did that ever cross your mind whilst in prison? It's a deep question, but because I know a lot of people do think like that.
No, never. I'd never end it. I've had to sit in the cell for the rest of my days. I'd sit it out because you're not meant to do that anyway. But you know, that's me. I'm not. I've never been weak-minded. If I was a weak-minded person, I wouldn't be sat here talking to you. I've done a lot and been through a lot in my time. Yeah, more so than I can probably even speak about. Well, I'm not weak-minded.
And then you said you spent some time in solitary confinement, and that's you in a cell, shoebox cell on your own, dark, I'm guessing as well. What was the hardest day in prison? Is there any one particular day that you will probably never forget that it was really hard?
Waking up first thing in the morning. Going to bed and shutting your eyes, yeah, and waking up in the morning, and sometimes you'd wake up, you'd be in a dream or whatever, yeah, and obviously you wouldn't be there, would you? And waking up and looking at your surroundings. I remember that.
And we spoke about Razmi. Is there any other person that kind of sticks with you from your time in prison that you hold fond memories of or learned something of?
Yeah, look, there was a lot of good people in the prisons, and you know, I've got personal friends today. I spent a lot of time with Mickey McAvoy in there. You know, he's a very, very good friend of mine, and you know, he had some very good sayings. He did, and he still has today, actually. So yeah, I spent some good times with him. You know, and I've got those other people in there. You know, I spent some time with. I spent plenty of times with a lot of people. Too many to mention, actually. Because regardless of what they've done, whatever they've done or what they've not done, you know, you're the same in there. You're a number. You're a number. And you see who's decent in there, and you see who's not. And the decent ones, like anything else, and this is a tribute to Mickey again, Mickey McAvoy, and he used to say to me, Peter, water finds its own level. He said, you look at all these rats in here, and you know, what they are, jumping over each other's back for a score of gear, or, you know, stabbings going on, this and that, over bullshit, you know, having sex with each other, all of this, you know, immoral stuff going on in there. And like I said, and he said to me, I said, look at all this. He says, it's like lifting a lid up and seeing a lot of rats in it. And he says, well, water finds its own level. He said, that's why we're like we are. And there's a few people in the system, he says, all good people. And that's it. And good people stick together, don't they?
They definitely do. Moving on, you've come out of prison. You chose boxing as your future career. Just tell me, at what point did you decide Peter Fury is going to become a trainer? Was it something specific that you came across, or you just thought, I've got the love for this, I'm going to do it?
I've never choose boxing as a career. That's number one. And number two, it was only ever to help my son and direct family in the first place. And that's it. You know, I was asked for me help, and I helped them. And I've helped a lot of people over the years, the same way, and people who know me as well. So, you know, anybody comes to me for help, I've always done my best to help them. Because I know what it's like, because when I wanted help, I couldn't get any. When I was down and had no money, I couldn't get any. So, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be like them people. So, I've always been like that. So, especially when young lads need me help and stuff like that, that's even more so I'm going to do it. So, no, and I don't even see myself as a trainer. You know, it's a lot more than that. I advise my fighters, talk to them, you know, and, you know, try and learn them things so to take someone in the future, you know, and stuff like that. So it's not like, I don't look at myself as a trainer. I look at myself, the people I work with, they're my own friends. I value them. I care about them. So it's not about a trainer for me.
Mick Hennessy, when I mention him, you see a lot of people over years, you know, without mentioning names, people fall out with each other, etc., from trainers, managers, fighters, etc. But your relationship with Mick Hennessy seems to have lasted decades, well over a decade. What's been the key part of that friendship?
With me and Mick, he's always been a very straight man. You know, he puts the fighters first before anything. He's a genuine man, and that's it. And when people's genuine, you know, they're hard to come by. So he's a family man. He's got a lovely family with his children, and you know, Mick does his best. But you know, the fighters he has, he's all for the fighters. He's all for the fighters. That's what he is. You know, it's fighters first, business second.
And talking of promoters, the current crop of promoters, you've got Ben Shalom, you've got Eddie Hearn, obviously you've got Frank Warren's still out there doing it, his sons George and Francis carrying the name forward. What do you make of the whole landscape of boxing promoters in the UK right now?
I don't get involved because boxing, I don't get involved with what other people's doing. I just look what we're doing. We got a good relationship going with Boxer Sky, and I'm only interested in looking at my own fighters. I'm not looking at other promoters. I don't really care what they're doing. I'm sure they don't care what I'm doing. So I don't look at them. I don't look at their interviews. I don't. Period. They're nothing to do with me. So I don't get involved.
You had that brief period where Hughie worked with Eddie Hearn. What kind of caused that to break? I don't want to say the relationship broke down, but like what caused that relation to stop?
It didn't really break down. Look, I've got no problems with Eddie Hearn. That's one thing I'll say about Eddie Hearn. When Hughie boxed, he got paid on time. The money was there. He was on time. Don't get me wrong. Boxer, they pay on time. So don't let people make a distinction. But I got nothing bad to say about Eddie Hearn or his family. But it just didn't feel right for where Hughie was at the time.
And with regards to Mick, just wrapping up on Mick, when your relationship started, what kind of drew you to Mick? Like, did you guys come across each other? And because obviously you seem like a kind of person who can judge somebody instantly.
I didn't know Mick. I had no idea. So I met Mick some years later. Like I said, I didn't know him. So, but as I got to know the fella over the years, I think the main thing is what I see. Look, you never really know anybody until years pass. And, when the shit hit the fan and, we had things to deal with, we had to deal with them. There was nobody else there when, they was looking at 8 and 10 year bans. It was me and Mick, and we was fighting it on a daily basis. It's all right, these money grabbers now and jumping on back like flies to shit, yeah? Again, where was all of these when it was all going wrong and they had no boxing careers? But guess what? Mick Hennessy, the little man that doesn't say anything, was right beside me fighting it on a daily basis till 12 and 2 o'clock in the morning, yeah? So that's why I value Mick Hennessy. Mick Hennessy's a proper man, and if I rang my door now and anything was wrong with me, that man would be here because his heart's in the right place. It's the same as what all of his fighters will tell you. So that's why he holds a special place for me. I'm not interested in other people, good time Charlies, where they're jumping on's back and telling what they want to hear because they'll suffer anything. They'll bend over and do anything if they think they're going to hold out and get a few quid. Them type of people can do their own thing, and I'll do mine. So that's another reason why Mick Hennessy is close to me, because when the shit's hit the fan, he's been there. And I look at the bit of loyalty in a different way, because I've been in some serious situations in my life, and I've needed that next man next to me to be strong. So if that man's weak, I'm gone. So basically, you're as strong as the next man next to you. If there's a weak link in the chain, you've got a problem. In my life, the way I've lived, that's the way I've lived. So I look at it as a very, very big thing. So I see all that. So I'm not interested in shallow people at all. I don't care if you got $1 billion. I don't care if you got nothing. I don't care if you're a superstar. I don't care if you're the best actor in the world. I just don't care because I don't value all of that. I value people's success and I give people the credit they deserve. But if I see a clink in that armour and I can see through what that person is, then it's not for me, because, listen, when people need me, I'm there. But if you need them, they're not there. So I don't want to surround myself with people like that. I don't, do I? But Mick, yes, he's always been there.
And to conclude on that, Peter...
And that's giving you one instance when we had problems with UKAD and all of this. There's been other instances as well where the man's always been there. Just a genuine man, and that's it. He ain't no big hard man, is he? He's not somebody that puts himself on the television all the time. But good person.
Yeah, and just mentioning Mick, he's kind of left the YouTube world with that one famous video. What the fuck is going on? And I hope he doesn't do anything again.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
He doesn't do any interviews, Mick, and I can see why. I've stopped doing a lot of stuff. I hardly go on the social media today. So this is what it is, because everybody wants to act fucking stupid to get a like. You know, you see a lot of cringe shit on there because good things. It's like you watch the news, isn't it? The tabloids. Good news don't sell. So if you want to make a prick of yourself, yeah, then you'll get plenty of views. It's all about likes today. I don't give a fuck if I've got a follower, yeah, or 10 million. I don't care. What you see with me is what you get. I'm just a real person. That's it. And I respect people. I respect good people. I've got no time for rubbish.
What's been the biggest lesson boxing's taught you, and also doubling into that question, and what's the biggest lesson life's taught you from the experience that you've had away from the boxing world?
I don't think boxing's taught me anything, because I've been through a lot before boxing was involved. I've seen, I know what people can do. I've seen many things for the type of worlds and what I've mixed in. So nothing is a surprise for me. Boxing is a mild, almost like where people can do stuff and it's no problem. They don't even realise what they're doing half the time, because it's that type of a thing. So it's like shallow waters boxing for me, as far as people's concerned. I don't bother with many people in it for that reason. But I've seen many things in life, and obviously experiences show you these type of things. So there's not much I don't see. I'm not fooled by anything. I'm a realist person, and I know what goes on behind my back. I'm not silly. I can see through the walls. I know what goes on. I know what people say. I know what they say. I know what they do. I know what they're going to do before they do it. That's just the way I am. But am I upset with it? Am I upset about anything? No, I'm not. I'm in a good place. I've always have been. I know where I stand. My feet's on the floor. But look, ultimately, my family's good. Yeah. And I thank the blessed Lord every day. I say my prayers every single morning in my life. And that all my family's good. And that's it. The rest of it is all a game.
Interesting final quote there, Peter. Anything else you want to add before I let you go?
Just relaxing and looking forward to a good Christmas. That's it really. Have you got any other questions?
No, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for welcoming me to your beautiful home. I really appreciate your good hour that you spent here with me today. And
I've had you here because I know you're a God-fearing young fella and you do your best. I'm not doing interviews at the minute, but I've had you here for that reason, because you're a good person, and that's why you're here, and I've took time out. And look, I don't care if you got anything, because you got 50 million. You're here in my home, you've been invited in, and that's it. You've had the interview for that reason, because you're a good person. So good shines through.
Massive amounts of respect for that, Peter. Appreciate
No problem.
Thank you.
But I wish everybody a happy Christmas. Don't let anybody put you down. Forget what other people's doing. Do what you're doing and enjoy your life, because you've only got one, and it may change. It may change up and down. It could change tomorrow. So enjoy it while you can. But I wish everybody a happy Christmas. God bless you, and a very prosperous Christmas and a good New Year.
Peter, for you, top man. Thank you so much.